This is Alex, a longtime friend, and also we've worked together many times. He works at the Turett Collaborative as a partner and lead architect, working on some of the most high-end brownstone apartment renovations in the city and beyond. And he is here to talk to us today about what he's seeing out in the field, out in the trenches.
Yeah, our work with the Turett Collaborative is, it really kind of spans a couple of different focuses. We do the brownstone renovations, we do the high-end, apartment renovations all around the city. We've also been pushing more and more into multifamily projects. That's something else that we're looking at. And we're working on projects, outside of the city as well. And it's a combination of, interiors and architecture with our firm. And so one thing that we always like to, present to people is that we can really do the whole thing kind of soup to nuts if that's what a client needs.
I'm always curious about the process. Like, what's your ideal client?
Yeah.
Is it someone that's like in the weeds or out of the weeds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a funny question, because I think if you look at it, overall, you'd say, who wouldn't want a client that's kind of hands off and just gives you, carte blanche to do whatever you want. And, that can be exciting in some moments, but to be honest with you, there's a couple parts of this. I mean, first of all, I think it's in our name. We're the Turett Collaborative. We feel like collaboration is a big part of the process. We really want, Wayne, the founder of our firm, has said this before, we sometimes want it to feel as though, the client designed this themselves in a way. Like, we really want them to feel like they've had a hand in the process. We don't want it to feel like they came to us, told us something, disappeared for 2 years, and then were surprised by what they found out at the end. We really want them to be a part of the process. That, it can bring its difficulties. Obviously, you're trying to marry a lot of different ideas. People are bringing all kinds of different things to the table. You're then trying to distill that into a design, both that works and that really kind of identifies what it is that they're really passionate about and what they're looking for in their home. So it's not to say that it's without its challenges when you have a client that's very hands-on, but we really feel like the product that comes out of that is really the best possible product. I think our clients are extremely pleased, when they've been a part of that process. And I think we gain a lot out of it, and we really learn a lot by working hand in hand with them. So I would say that I'd much rather work with a client that's hands-on versus hands-off.
Got it. Yeah, I actually agree. In our business too,
Mm-hmm.
it's very similar. Like, where do you see trends
Mm-hmm.
going as far as renovation? Like, I know that there's a fashion to real estate,
Right.
and for a long time it was classic 6s and 7s on the Upper East and Upper West Side. Then
Right.
it went to lofts downtown. Now it's
Yeah.
Brownstones in Brooklyn. And I'm just curious, what kind of things do you see for 2024 that maybe might be new and fresh to, like, real estate buyers or renovators out there?
I mean, I would agree with you. I think the trend on brownstones is still continuing. That market has kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit with the economy and the interest rates, but overall, we're still seeing a lot of demand there. And I think we still see that people are looking to that more than they're looking to multifamily projects, or maybe more than they were in the past. There's a lot of, activity in both. I think people are really looking for a calmer space and a quieter space, and that part of that could be the draw towards a private home versus living in a multifamily building. And part of it, I think, also is just more muted kind of interiors, calmer interior spaces, less bright colors, loud designs, less tech that's in your face. Not to say that people are not investing in tech in their homes, but, I think there was a big period where everybody was competing about speakers and sound systems and touchpads on the wall and all these devices. And, let me see if I have the most high-tech system. And those things don't last. Then they get phased out, they get replaced by something new a couple years later. I don't think people are so focused on that. I think they really want their homes to be more of a sanctuary, more of a space where they can kind of disconnect and kind of step back from everything else that's happening outside. So we're seeing more of that in our work too.
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing like those Bang & Olufsen, centerpieces.
Right, exactly.
And that were like $16,000.
Yeah.
And now the speakers are designed to actually just blend right disappear right into the ceiling. It's kind of crazy.
The other part of this too, I think, is people are, because of COVID, because maybe people are spending more time in their homes, everything that's kind of changed over the last few years, But I think people are becoming even more conscious about the environment of their home. And I say environment in a lot of different ways, whether that's colors and finishes and tech and all these other things that I was just talking about, or even just the quality of the space inside the house, the quality of the, of the air conditioning and the heating and the humidity levels. How comfortable are they inside of their homes? What kind of lighting are they getting there? People are much more sensitive to the lighting inside of their spaces. I think they're much more considerate about, is this really a space that I want to spend a lot of time in? Do I feel comfortable in here? Versus, is this, the trendiest, coolest, highest tech kind of the moment, type of design?
Like a more timeless.
Yeah, a more timeless kind of design, and a design that really considers, their personal comfort, in that space.
I always find it funny, like the more fashionable your home is, the quicker it dates.
Yeah, exactly. This is a thing that we talk about a lot. I think there's a real, I wouldn't call it a danger, but sometimes you can get caught chasing trends because you see something, or you visited somebody else's home or things like that. And people should do what they want, especially for their own homes. I'm always encouraging clients that, whether it's a trend or it's not a trend, whether you like it, but you are afraid other people are going to think it's ugly, it's your home. You're investing a lot of money and energy and passion into it. You should do what'll feel good for you. But the flip side of that is, don't necessarily chase things just because you think that that's the thing that everybody's going after right now. Because to your point, in that moment, you may be right. And if everything was happening only in that moment, you might have the coolest, product on the market at that time. But these things, they ebb and flow and they come and go. And there's certain timeless elements to the design, and there's certain elements of just treating the space in a good way that don't really fixate on what's hot and popular at the moment.
Yeah, like a good example I feel like is like things that are functional or bring warmth to a home tend to last a lot longer than just something kind of, I don't know, just something completely cosmetic.
Yeah, exactly. And and this is even a thing that you see, like there's the colors of the year, there's the materials of the year. And again, I'm not trying to downplay the significance of those things. Those really, they reflect where the market is going, they reflect where, trends are shifting. But to fixate too much on chasing those things, or to try to, catch all of that into a project or into a renovation, I don't think it benefits anyone. I don't think it benefits in the long run of the resale of the house, or just kind of how it feels a couple of years down the line.
Yeah.
And I don't think it benefits the client or the homeowner in terms of making a space that really reflects themselves or that gives them, what they need. And that's really, what we're kind of striving after on all these projects.
What's your favorite project that you guys have worked on?
Let's see. I mean, we've done some really great townhomes and townhome-esque projects around the city over the years. There's a couple that stick out. There's one that's in Tribeca, which got a bunch of acclaim, a few years ago. It's the property at the corner of North Moore Street, 2 North Moore. Big project for us. Big project for anyone, frankly. But what was interesting about that project, and I think it kind of weaves a thread through other work that we've done, is it was identifying a property that maybe didn't seem like an obvious choice for a home, or maybe there wasn't kind of a clear idea of like, how do we convert this into a residential project? And, the client working with us, we were able to kind of tease out those ideas and present it to them and get them excited, about this house and about the potential in it. And then really turn it into this amazing residence, which was a combination of restoring an old 2-story industrial building, tearing down kind of a dinky 2-story building that was next to it that was just concrete block, sort of filler, putting up a 5-story kind of very skinny townhouse-like structure next to it, and marrying the two of them together. And so you have this really, really, in my opinion, beautiful kind of combination of old and new, of restorative work, which it was in a landmarks district, and we had to work closely with LPC around all of that. And, and then blending that in with a contemporary, architectural intervention. And it's a really great project. The people that developed it and lived there loved it. We got to know the second owners, because they then sold it and other people moved in. They loved it. It's now on its 3rd owner. It's just everybody who's lived there has had a really great experience. 15 years old, I want to say, something like that. It's really, it's kind of spanned a good amount of time, and people have been very happy with it.
Most of your clients have pretty healthy budgets, to say the least. But a normal person
Yeah.
with a normal budget wants to put their resources heavily towards one aspect of the renovation, let's say
Right.
cosmetically, let's say it's the flooring or the kitchen or the
Right.
bathroom or whatever, or the lighting,
Yeah.
or even furniture. Like, what do you think is like the most, if you were to like really allocate as many resources as possible, what would it be towards?
Yeah, I mean, you
To
know,
get the most bang for your buck.
it can be hard to say, you know, because obviously every project is different, every space is different. I would argue that I think there are very simple cosmetic finishes that you could do, whether it's paint, whether it's, you know, updating some tile work or a new countertop, things like that. Like very simple kind of stripping of the very final layer of a space and introducing something new or painting over that existing layer that I think can really get a lot for, you know, for the amount that you put into it. You know, the space will feel more up to date. It'll feel cleaner, fresher, you know, all of those kind of adjectives. And it doesn't necessarily involve any heavy duty ripping up of everything or opening up of the walls, because what's difficult is, you know, floors are great and you could do a lot, you know, a floor could make a lot for a space, but flooring can be very difficult. I mean, you can really start to create a whole project out of just trying to replace and introduce, you know, new flooring. Lighting is another one of those things. Lighting is extremely important to projects. We often try to tell clients that, you know, you shouldn't forget the lighting. You shouldn't think that, oh, this is all about finishes and dividing of spaces and all of that. That's great, and we take a lot of pride in the work that we do. But to really make our work shine, you know, literally speaking, lighting designers or our own kind of in-house, you know, lighting work is a huge part of that. So people shouldn't forget that. But that's a big, you know, that could be a big task. That, you know, is not necessarily a simple thing. So
Totally.
Finishes, you know, very basic kind of level finishes, I think could do a lot for a space.
I always feel like lighting is the jewelry of the home.
Yeah,
That's
a nice way to think about it.
Yeah. How does your firm differ than the rest of the competition?
So the collaborative part of it, I think, is a big part. And not to say that, you know, we're the only architects that really work closely with their clients, but depending on where you go and depending on the way they approach design, it, you know, it could feel very much like buying a product. And you're coming to someone and they're saying, this is what you get, this is what we do, you know, this is what we make, either you like it or you don't, and that's kind of the process.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about passive housing, what that means and how it's being incorporated into modern design.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's a thing that's been kind of coming up for a long time, the passive house movement. You know, the movement itself, I think, it's a few decades old. I forget exactly how far back it goes now. But I think it's becoming more and more popular in the U.S. And, you know, we're seeing it more and more, especially in the New York City market and with brownstone renovations, as well as with new construction. You know, and really what it is, to kind of distill it super, you know, simply, is it's a form of high performance design and high performance building construction, which really focuses on the envelope of the building and kind of creating a tightly sealed and, as I'm saying, high performing envelope. And what that really means is, you know, triple paned windows or even beyond that, a lot of insulation either on the interior of the building or the exterior, depending on the construction, tightly sealing all of the different joints between all the different elements, and, you know, and really kind of controlling the environment inside the house. And, you know, this has a lot of kind of ripple effects that you begin to feel when you integrate that into the design of, you know, of any kind of renovation or construction. One of them is almost immediate in the sense that it can really begin to significantly downsize your mechanical systems inside your house, because now you're creating this tightly sealed, high-performing envelope. So you don't need to oversize your HVAC. You don't need a ton of cooling or heating. Yeah. It's really remarkable how small of a system you can get for how large of a house versus the way things used to be done. So that's, you know, that's a cost offset kind of during construction right there. You spend a little more on the envelope, but you save on the mechanical system. And then, you know, the other thing that we speak about a lot with our clients is there's other effects that you begin to appreciate once you move into the house. One of them is, sure, your energy costs are going down. That's great. You know, you're using less energy. That's great. But the other thing is, you know, the environmental aspects of you being in the home changes, because now the home is a lot quieter. You know, when you've insulated everything and sealed everything and you've invested in these triple pane windows, you're not dealing with the noise pollution, you know, that you're used to. And that's the kind of thing that I think people sometimes don't even think about. You just figure, you know, we live in New York, it's noisy, you do the best that you can, but that's just part of it. It doesn't have to be this way. The same goes for, you know, for how drafty a house may feel, or for any kind of infiltration of water or, you know, or pests or grime or dirt or any of that stuff. It's all things, this is true across the board, but I think especially in New York, you think, well, that's just how houses have to be built. That's just how they are. Especially if I'm renovating an 1800s brownstone, there's only so much I can do. I just have to kind of accept that that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't have to be. So, we really talk to our clients about this whole passive house, design movement, as there's a lot of different facets of it. One of them is a level of luxury that I think people haven't necessarily considered before, and that's the luxury of comfort.
Yeah,
in
totally.
space.
And also, one thing I've just to reiterate that previous point you made, like I remember for a long time, all these apartments, regardless how big or small, they were all 70 amps,
Right.
70 amps. And then all of a sudden it went to 200 amps
Right.
or 150 amps.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to see, they're still 200
Yeah.
amps, but they're pulling in less than the 70
Yeah.
amps.
Exactly.
Unless you like attach an electric car or
Right.
something crazy like that.
Right.
But so everything is so energy efficient.
Yeah.
Now. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like a house, an old brownstone, breathing was
Mhm.
part of its architecture. Like
Yeah.
the attic had to breathe,
Mhm.
like it had to,
Yeah.
and now it's almost the opposite. You have these two completely different temperatures.
Yeah.
And now it's a technology has to accommodate for these two, because the insulation's so crazy
Mhm.
and everything's airtight.
Yeah.
And then on the inside, and you could have it like literally 80 degrees and
Right.
it could be like 11 degrees outside.
Right.
So
And it raises new sort of design challenges, both for us as architects as well as for contractors in the field. You have to understand how you're marrying this, 150 plus year old kind of leaky, drafty exterior shell with
Yeah.
this new tightly sealed, envelope. You have to be conscious of the way different materials perform. So there's definitely a lot of care and thought that has to go into this. You can't necessarily just lay up a bunch of insulation or spray foam insulation everywhere and call it a day.
yeah.
There's a sophistication to it, but yeah, it's impressive, what you can do to an existing building that maybe seems like it's kind of beyond saving or beyond sort of redeeming in terms of its performance. But you can really get a very high performing building out of it. And we've got a couple projects that we're working on right now that are aspiring to just that. The other thing to just kind of throw in there quickly is that you're still getting fresh air into these homes. I think people sometimes, if they've heard of passive house before, or if they're hearing this conversation about, oh, we're tightly sealing, they think, oh, isn't it going to get stuffy and and kind of gross in there? How do you manage that? There's a whole system that's designed into the mechanical system of the home, which is meant to bring in fresh air. At the same time, it's doing it in a very kind of sophisticated way where you're not just pulling in cold air from the outside, when it's the middle of winter outside. You're not losing cold air to the exterior when it's the middle of summer. It's got a heat exchanger, which is kind of making sure that you're managing kind of your energy losses as the air is coming in and out of the envelope. But you're not breathing the same recycled stagnant air over and over. You are introducing fresh air. That's, I think, always an important point to make to people, because they get a little anxious about the idea of things being too sealed.
Are there any specific new projects that you're working on that you're really excited about that you could share with us?
Yeah, definitely. We joke that we can't always talk about all the projects that we work on and all the clients, but there's definitely some projects that we're really excited about. Both of them are pushing to finish later this year, and we're really excited to see those kind of come online. And they tie into this kind of conversation we've been having on and off about passive house design and how that integrates into brownstone renovation. So they're both townhouses, here in the city. One of them's on the Upper West Side, the other one's in Park Slope in Brooklyn. A little bit different approach, with each of them, but both of them are aspiring towards passive house, standards of envelope design and construction. Neither of them are going to be able to ultimately, I think, go for the full passive house certification just by the nature of those projects and the way that they're being built. But, I think it's been an important part of the process to us, and it's been important to our clients that we really try to build these houses to the highest possible standard and level, that we can. And, as I've mentioned before, it's not only about how well are they going to perform when the electric bill comes at the end of the month, but it's also how comfortable are these homes going to be to live inside of. And so the one on the Upper West Side, it's funny, in some ways they're almost kind of polar opposites. There's big, it's a historic brownstone. It's in a Upper West Side historic district, and they're digging out the backyard and the cellar, and so they're just chewing through tons of bedrock in order to excavate the
Are they
cellar.
building a pool? Is that why?
No, they're extending kind of like a rec room, sort of media room,
Oh,
and
cool.
and some amenity spaces. Because the existing cellar that was there, if I remember correctly, I think it was 6.5, 7 feet. They wanted to get it down, to a depth that was kind of more comfortable and livable, and they wanted to take some of the space, out of the backyard. But it's the Upper West Side, so it's tons of bedrock, and so they, the contractors there have just been working extremely, diligently for months and months, just chiseling away at it. When you see photos of it, and we've put some of the stuff on our Instagram in the past, it looks like you're in a rock quarry. I mean, you see these guys climbing ladders with just sheer faces of of rock coming down. And then
that means it's stable.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no, there's no concern about that. And then the project on the in Park Slope is almost the opposite, because it's kind of sitting in an area of Park Slope that kind of slopes down towards the Gowanus neighborhood.
They have damp. Whenever I
Yeah.
sell on Park Slope, those basements, they'll be like multi-million dollars, and you go down to the basement and it's damp.
You get, exactly. So we thankfully, in this particular spot where we are, we haven't run into, sort of groundwater problems like that, though it definitely is prevalent in the area. You're not wrong. But the soil itself is just very poor. That area is all kind of old marsh land, infill, draining towards the canal.
Yeah.
So, we've been taking two very different structural approaches to these two projects. And, they're both really, really unique properties for, really special clients who are very excited and anxious to get in there. And, we're really looking forward to sharing them with everyone later on this year.
All right. Well, thank you for joining.
Yeah,
and, sharing some of the projects that you're working on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm always happy to talk about, real estate and construction in New York, and I'm happy to talk about the work that we do. So
thanks again.
Yeah.